Rules of the game boru. General provisions. The game is held on a special field adapted for a game boru. The field for the game is divided evenly for both teams. The parameters of the field: length 200 meters, width 70 meters, distance between tie kazans 140 meters, distance from the center to tie kazan 70 meters, distance from tie kazans to the external line by axis 30 meters. Penalty area is located 20 meters from tie kazans. The size of a central and penalty circles are 10 meters in diameter. The distance of a small circle is 3 meters in radius, where the carcass of a goat is put in the beginning of the game, 15 meters from the sidelines along the perpendicular axis. Each of the competing teams will have their own tie kazan, a gate, the size of which the overall radius of the upper part is 3.6 meters, height 1.2 meter, width of the curb is 0.8 meter, width of the pot of tie kazan is 2 meter in radius, depth is 0.5 meter, the radius of the lower part of tie kazan is 4.4 meters. The field where the game takes place should be surrounded by a fence of 1.5 meter height, which should be able to withstand the pressure of horses and keep the players and horses from injuries when touching. Main rules of the game: composition of 2 teams, 12 players and 12 horses. 4 players from each team come into the game. The team may change the player during the game by the decision of the coaches of the teams without stopping the game. The game lasts 60 seconds and consists of 3 periods of 20 minutes each, and the victory goes to the team that will be able to throw the carcass of a goat into the tie kazan of an opponent. The player who consumed alcoholic beverages drunk before the game are not allowed to play. The weight of the carcass of a goat should be between 32 and 35 kilograms. Start of the game. The game starts with a ceremonial oath of players, according to the old tradition, who take an oath to faithfully hold the game. The teams take a place in a row at the central circle. The referee turns to the audience, says the words of the oath, and the players repeat out loudly after him. The captains determine their tie kazan by lot. The carcass of a goat should be at least 15 meters from the sideline from the side of a rostrum. The teams are required to stand in one row behind the sideline opposite to rostrum. After the whistle of the referee, all players rush to grab the carcass of a goat the first. If no team will be able to grab the carcass of a goat within 2 minutes, then the game stops and starts over in the central circle. 1 player from each team will join the circle. When a carcass of a goat is inside the circle, the other players are not eligible to enter the game. If the player who grabs the carcass of a goat will not come out from the circle within 1 minute, the referee will replace them by other players. The game. The capture of the carcass and other tricks in the game are done according to the rules of the ancient game boru. The game is played without a break until the carcass of a goat is not thrown into the tie kazan by one of the teams or due to a gross violation of the rules of the game by any of the players. In order for the score to be counted, the carcass of a goat needs to be thrown exactly into the tie kazan. In cases when the carcass is thrown into the curbs and does not fall into the tie kazan, hitting the tie kazan mechanically jumps out from tie kazan, then they are not considered as a goal and not scored. Similarly, it is not scored when this carcass of a goat is thrown into the tie kazan by a player who ran with its horse into the tie kazan. After getting the carcass into the tie kazan and scoring the goal in the field by the referee, the game starts over again from the center of the field. If the playing field is not fenced, the game stops when the player with its horse goes beyond the playing field out. The game restarts with a meeting of 2 players in one of the 3 circles in the nearby area where the offense has taken place. In other words, in nearby the tie kazan of one of the teams, then a circle which is nearby the tie kazan, and if nearby the center of the field, in the central circle. If one of the players roughly stops another player who is carrying the carcass, the offender of the rules of the game shall be punished by a penalty, and the carcass remains in the hands of the player who owned it prior to stopping. The game consists of 3 periods, each of which consists of 20 minutes. There are 10 minutes breaks between the periods. In case one of the teams deliberately temporizes the time, not coming to the field after the break, the other team has a right to start the game without the participation of another in the due time. prior to the semifinals, when the scores are even, no extra time is given. After a 5-minute break, the free throw bullets are played. In the semifinals and finals, if in the end of the game both teams get equal number of scores and referees determines a 10-minute extra game until one of the teams throws the carcass into the opponent's taikazan. In case if the winner is not identified within the given extra time, then the bullet is played. 4 players from each team come out to play the bullet. The rules of bullet. One of the players shall take the position at the distance of 30 meters. After him, the player from another team shall take the position. They must start galloping at a time by the referee's whistle. The opponent shall try to impede the player who has the carcass in order to prevent from throwing the carcass into the taikazan. If the player who owns the carcass will not allow the opponent to prevent, and despite resistance from the opponent will be able to throw the carcass into the taikazan, then it shall be scored. The player who is attacking the taikazan of an opponent holding the carcass has the right to slow down the pace of his horse depending on situation. Please note that each of the 4 players of the team has the right to throw the carcass only once and participate in the chasing after the opponent in bullet only once. It is prohibited to change the horses when playing bullet. In case the attacking player goes beyond the axis of taikazan, he has no right to throw the carcass into taikazan. In case none of the teams is able to get a decisive victory point out of all 4 throws, then the bullet game will continue until the decisive throw. The players who are in the game will be changed only by permission of the referee in the field, but there should be only 4 players from each team on the field when changing the players. The change takes place at the line perpendicular to the axis. While the player leaving the game shall not cross the line of the playing field, the spare player shall not have a right to enter the game. If the player shall leave the field at non-established place and another player shall enter the game, this will be considered as the violation of the rules of the game. In case the player falls off the horse and the horse runs away or a saddle girth is torn, the referee's assistant shall give permission for a spare player to enter the game, not expecting the other player to leave the field. In order to gain the interest, the force techniques are allowed in the game that are best by both horses and players, but the ones that do not violate the rules of the games. However, it is strictly prohibited to run into the player who is lifting the carcass of the coat. The defender of an opposing team has no right to be on a penalty field. It is allowed for a defender to enter the penalty field before the attacking player only by a body of a horse. When the carcass of a goat goes out of a penalty field, then all the players should leave the zone. Prohibited. The player who did not take an oath is not admitted to the game. The players who violate these rules will be sent to a 2-minute withdrawal to Karamami, the penalty spot. The team whose player is punished shall continue the game in the minority with 3 players. Please note that the penalty time counts from the moment the player enters the Karamami, and the horse should be in Karamami as well within 2 minutes along with the player. In case when the player uses the prohibited methods, retention of an opponent with hands, blocks his way with his horse, or tries to throw him off his horse, is sent to a 2-minute withdrawal to Karamami. If such violations take place at the moment of throwing the carcass into the taikazan or the approach lanes to the taikazans, then as a punishment, jazakazan is applied, in other words, bullet. One of the players of the suffering teams shall take and in full speed throw the carcass into the taikazan of an opponent. The execution of jazakazan is in line with the rules of the bullet. The player who ties the carcass brightly or gripped with his petidial girdle, oramo, after wearing leaves the field for 2 minutes to Karamami. For a deliberate pulling the time after warning, it is also given a punishment, and the player is sent to a 2-minute withdrawal to Karamami, or the team is punished by a bullet. It is strongly prohibited to argue with the referees. Wrangling with the referee after a warning or for insulting the referee, the players are punished by a withdrawal for 2 minutes. The player who passed the line, insult, vulgar words, or others gets a red card, and the player is disqualified until the end of the game. The team will have to play the game without one player the rest of the game. If the team or the coach of the team, without obeying the decision of the referee, makes a psychological pressure on the referee, the team gets a penalty throw, bullet, and by the decision of the protocol commission gets a fine. For an unquotable curse, the player after a warning gets a withdrawal for 2 minutes. In certain cases, a withdrawal without a warning for abnormal behavior, fight withdrawal for 2 minutes. In some cases, a withdrawal for the rest of the game. The team will play for the rest of the game in the minority. The player who lifts up the carcass from the ground cannot be attacked by a horse of an opponent from the side of the carcass, and there is a punishment for that: disqualification from the game. In case the player is seriously injured, then the offender shall be disqualified for the rest of the game. It is allowed to attack a player from another side within the frame of this stipulated rules. For ramming an opponent in full speed, whether he has the carcass of a goat or without it, withdrawal for 2 minutes. When the two players in the center circle play off the carcass, no one has the right to enter the drawn line. In case the rule is violated after the warning, the player shall be withdrawn from the game for 2 minutes to the karamamu. In case of disagreement of the player with the decision of the referee in the field as well as referral of the player to the protocol commission, such behavior shall be taken as a deliberate pulling of the time and shall be withdrawn from the game for 2 minutes. In case of revealing the fifth player in any of the team who violated the rule shall be penalized, withdrawal for 2 minutes. Thus, the team shall play in a minority for that time. When entering the game by a spare pillar without waiting for a team player to come out from the field, it's a penalty for withdrawal for 2 minutes. The team which voluntarily stops the game and does not obey the decision of the senior referee shall be considered as lost. Please note that in all cases except the free throw bullet, the game starts directly nearby to the gate the team which violated the rules. One player from each team shall enter the specially drawn circle for a playoff, and while they will not go beyond the circle of drawing, other players do not have the right to enter into this circle. Requirements for the teams. The horses that are entering the playing field should not have extra metallic decorations, silver, brass, iron, etc. They might injure the other players. The edges of a stirrup should be smooth and the horse shoes not sharp. There are not more than 5 people. One coach and 4 horse breeders are allowed to be next to the team during the game. The team who does not follow this requirement is announced as defeated. The refereeing committee and protocol commission. The refereeing committee consists of 3 people, the referee in the field and 2 his assistants. Both the horses and the decoration should be as required by the rules of the game. The team that does not exhibit their horses for inspection shall not be admitted to the game. In addition to the referee team, there shall be a protocol commission serving the game that is assigned by the board of Federation boru. The Protocol Commission reviews the recommendations and complaints of the teams and disputable moments takes a decision to award a victory to one of the 2 teams. If the referee will not be able to facilitate the game in the field according to the set of rules, then the Protocol Commission shall replace him by another referee. The Federation boru coordinates the award distribution issues through the Protocol Commission. The awards received during the game shall be reviewed by the Protocol Commission beforehand, and only then shall be handed into the 2 players. The procedure for submission of documents and requirements for sport equipment of the participants. The team leaders are required to submit the following documents 15 days prior to the start of the tournament. Application form in 1 copy. Passport of citizenship and personal identification cards of the players with a photo on it, health insurance policy and medical statement of the health state of each player, passport for horses with a photo on it, large-size photo of the horse and from the profile, a veterinary certificate from each horse. The team should have on them 2 different sets of sport uniform for the players. The size of number of the pack should be in the line with the standard 200 on 150 millimeters, up front 150 on 100 millimeters. Ceremonial clocks of a certain color for each player and the team leader. Head helmets for the player. Protective clothes made of leather or canvas for the lower part of the horse, the color of which should be the same as the color of the uniform of the team. Flags for the parade. Medical and veterinary kits. Team is not allowed to apply any advertising symbols on the uniform and on the horse that are participating in the tournament without the permission of the organizing committee, except for the name of the team, last name and the first name of the players.